Hey guys, let's look into JEE Mains 2020 paper. I'll be discussing the 8th January morning session paper. If you want a copy for yourself, you can actually go down the description link in YouTube video you're watching right now, and I've hosted it on Google Drive. You can download it. It's the same paper and the same order I'm going to be discussing it in. Okay, question 1. The major product of the following reaction is, so they are given you a molecule. So what happens when you treat it with dilute H2SO4? Now have a look at the options. First thing I always say to students is make sure that you look at the reagent given and what is the purpose of this reagent. The purpose of this reagent, it can actually donate a H plus and deprotonate it, but your final answer is not going to be a deprotonated product because it's dilute, it's not concentrated in heat. So it can initiate a reaction, remove the OH and form a carbocation. So when you look at option alpha and Charlie, they don't have the double bonds, so obviously that is not okay. Now let's look into what can be done. Our first step, dilute H2SO4. So the H plus can get attached here, and this group can take the electron and leave, and you can get a carbocation right there. So I have a carbocation. Now what can happen is this carbocation is deficient in electron. So it's an electrophile. It wants a nucleophile. And luckily I have a nucleophile not outside but inside. Now this nucleophile can attack. There are two of them. Now which one do you think you will attack? If this attacks, you form a cyclic product. Even if let's say this carbon attacks, this carbon and this carbon cannot form a bond again. There is already a double bond. So this carbon attacks, you get a 3-membered ring. So that is not going to happen. So we can see whether this carbon attacks. So let's look into not IUPAC numbering, just what the ring size I'll get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this pi bond can attack the carbocation. Which carbon exactly attacks this one? Because this gives you a 6-membered ring. If this attacks, let's name this as carbon 1, carbon 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carbon 1, carbon 2 and carbon 3, there is a double bond, and carbon 3 has a methyl group. 4, 5 is okay. 6, now this carbon has taken this pi electron and formed a bond, meaning this carbon number 7 has lost its share of electron. Carbon 6 is attached to carbon 7, which is attached to this. So now carbon 7 is going to be a carbocation. Now this carbocation is a tertiary carbocation, it is stable enough. Now it can be attacked by the nucleophile OH2, giving you double bond here, single bond here, and OH2 plus, which will end up giving you OH. The hydrogen is lost. So basically, I gain a hydrogen from this, and then this goes away, and again I get my OH in a different place right now. So what you have done is basically you have not taken any double bond away, you just rearrange it. For example, double bond equivalent of this compound is 1, 2. Double bond equivalent of this compound is 1 double bond, 1 ring. Double bond equivalent is 2. So this carbon, which is your option C, option beta, which is your right option, and the given compound, these are isomers. They isomerize in presence of dilute H2SO4. It's a fairly higher level question, I can say. Okay, still the options will give it to you away. Option 1 and 3 are wrong. Between 2 and 4, okay, it's a cyclic mechanism. I write my carbocation and then I look into this. Again, this is not a IUPAC numbering. This is just for convenience to know what number of carbon that is going to be present in the ring I get. Question number 2. The strength of an aqueous NaOH solution is most accurately determined by titrating. So in general, a titration is when you have your burette and then you have your conical flask. So usually you want your base in here. NaOH always goes here. NaOH, and this is graduated, so I can figure out what is the initial volume, final volume. Here you always take your acid. Alright, now that I know this, base goes into the burette and the acid goes in the conical flask. How do you get the acid? You use a pipette. If I want 20 ml, I use a 20 ml pipette. Now, if I want this, if you look at option alpha, volumetric flask, conical flask, they are wrong. Option beta, pipette, that is also wrong. Option Charlie, NaOH in the burette, that's okay. Option delta, NaOH in the burette, that's okay. Whereas option Charlie says concentrated H2SO4. Option delta, it is oxalic acid. Now, they are both acids. Now, which one would you use? Both of them will give you results. Both of them will be able to determine, but your fourth one is best. The reason because it's a weak acid, so the heat generated is less. And also oxalic acid is a primary standard. Primary standard is something that I can accurately determine how many moles are present. For example, H2SO4, let's say for example you take 20 mils of 0.1 molar. You are given 0.1 molar, but tomorrow that label will say 0.1, but the solution doesn't have to be 0.1 because a little bit of water could have evaporated. So that is not going to be accurate. So you want a primary standard here. Primary standard is something that I know exactly how much. So 20 mils 0.1 doesn't tell me exactly how many moles because that's not accurate. Whereas primary standard means I can weigh the mass and do it. You guys don't have the extensive chemistry of what is a primary standard. At least know what a primary standard basis is. It is something that doesn't change over time. Usually you can weigh it out. Option delta. Number 3. The third ionization enthalpy is minimum for. So they are telling you iron, nickel, cobalt, Mn. So iron for us 3p. Iron is S2, P6, S2, sorry, D. S2, D8, S2, D7, S2, D5. So, third ionization energy means I have already removed 2 electrons. So, all these are gone. Now, I want to remove one more electron which will have the minimum ionization enthalpy. Obviously, this is going to have the maximum because it's half filled. Okay, because of being symmetrical and also exchange energy, this is not going to be losing electron easily. So, this will have the highest, which is actually going to become more stable by losing 1 electron, iron 2 plus. Iron 2 plus will become D5. So, D5 is very good. So, hence, iron will have the lowest or minimum third ionization energy among the given species. Option is alpha. Question number 4. The rate of a chemical reaction, a biochemical reaction at a physiological temperature occurs 10 power 6 times faster than normal. Okay, when you use an enzyme, it is 10 power 6 times faster. Obviously, that's the nature of an enzyme. The change in activation energy upon adding an enzyme is. Now, in kinetics, we know K equals A e power minus EA by RT. Now, if you take the ln on both sides, you know it's ln A minus EA by RT. Now, let's take two conditions. One is with the enzyme and one is without the enzyme. Now, if I take with enzyme, let's put Ke equals ln A. This is not going to change. Frequency factor is not going to change. Minus EA with the enzyme. Let's put Ez by R, and they are not changing the temperature, so it is going to be the same. Now that we have the equations for the enzyme catalyzed and uncatalyzed reaction, what we can do is we can do one minus the other. Let's say this is equation 1, equation 2. I'm going to do 2 minus 1. ln A minus ln B is ln of A by B. So, ln of K enzyme divided by K equals ln A is probability factor, cancels out. I have this minus EA enzyme minus EA by RT becomes, sorry, this is minus of minus plus. So now what I have is, this is the change they are talking about, minus EA enzyme plus EA equals, I can take it as ln of K Ez by K is 2.303 log of. Now 2.303 log of K enzyme by K, the reaction is 10 power 6 times faster. Now we have seen in kinetics lecture that rate is proportional to rate constant. We have seen that for the same concentration. So difference in rate I can put it here, and also the RT can be multiplied here. So log of 10 to the power 6 would be 6 log 10. So I have 6 times 2.303 times RT equals this quantity. So basically EA enzyme minus EA, I can put it here. Or how do you worry about sign? If you look at options Charlie and delta, the sign is different, but I got my 2.303 times 6 times RT. Now how do I determine between Charlie and delta? Use fundamental. The question asks the change in activation energy. So this is what we have, this reaction, and now this is the catalyzed reaction. Now this is the change in activation energy. What has happened to activation energy? It has decreased. So minus. So you have decreased it. So you are subtracting it. So I can put a negative sign. Again, this numerical thing, it is always better to go with fundamental than doing through math. Now watch for the question carefully. They can ask you how much has it decreased by. Okay. When you do that, they are asking you magnitude. So this is option delta. Number 5, we can actually do it right here, no need to erase this. As per Hardy-Schulz rule. So Hardy-Schulz rule, we know that the flocculation is dependent on the charges. They are giving you a ferric hydroxide sol. Ferric hydroxide sol is going to be covered with Fe3.
Hence the anionic charge will flocculate. We know from Hardy-Schulz rule the coagulation power of the anion follows the charge order FeCN6 3 minus greater than chromate 2 minus greater than monovalent anions, chloride equals bromide equals nitrate. Higher the coagulation power, lower will be its flocculation value. So hence the order would be the exact reverse. Your chloride, bromide and nitrate all are equal, less than chromate, less than your FeCN6 3 minus. Option is alpha.
The following statement is not true for glucose. So we have seen glucose in biomolecules, we have seen how you elucidate the structure of glucose. First statement is the pentaacetate of glucose does not react with hydroxylamine to give you an oxime. Pentaacetate is already a derivative, so it doesn't react. So option 1 is correct. Option 2, glucose gives Skiff's test for aldehyde. Skiff's test, basically what it does is you have decolored Skiff's base and then you add an aldehyde to it and it gives the color back, magenta color. But glucose does not give you Skiff's test because it's in a cyclic structure. You don't have the aldehyde group anymore, it is a hemiacetal group. So beta is wrong. So that's going to be not true. Let's look at the other ones too. Charlie, glucose exists in 2 crystalline forms, alpha and beta. Yes, 2 anomeric forms depending on your hemiacetal carbon, whether OH is down or OH is up. Glucose reacts with hydroxylamine to form oxime, glucose oxime. Obviously that is true. So 1 is true, 3 is true, 4 is true. The not true option and the correct option is beta. Number 7. The first ionization enthalpy of sodium, magnesium, aluminum and silicon. Now, we have seen this in periodicity. We have S1, S2, P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6. The general group trend is S1 is easy to remove. So, I am going to have, this is for any given period. S1 is easy to remove and then compared to S2. Example, in our case, they are given sodium, magnesium. So this is sodium. You can extrapolate to any period. This is magnesium. Then it is going to be lower for aluminum because P1 can lose an electron and become S2. So aluminum is lower, and then you're going to have higher for a carbon group. Here they have given you silicon. Carbon group is higher. Nitrogen group is even higher. So in our case we have, they give you only 4. Then phosphorus. Then oxygen group is lower because this is fully filled. I cannot remove. Whereas oxygen group, by removing one electron, I become half filled. Sorry. This is half filled, harder to remove. This is one electron extra than half filled, so I can easily remove. So it's lower than your nitrogen, than your inert gas. So this is the profile that you have for ionization energy along any period. So here if you see, we should have our, among them, silicon as the highest, followed by Mg, followed by Al, followed by Na. Option alpha should be the correct option. Question number 8. The decreasing order of reactivity towards dehydrohalogenation E1. Circle the E1 because dehydrohalogenation normally what we saw, it proceeds through E2. If it proceeds through an E1 right away, it's not a printing mistake. They are telling you it's an E1, means it goes through a carbocation mechanism. Carbocation mechanism means dehydrohalogenation. By removing a halogen, you don't get a carbocation. So you remove a hydrogen in the first step. So you're going to form the corresponding carbocations. All you have to do is put the corresponding carbocation. So carbocation here. Alright, so now which is the most stable one? Obviously your D will be the most stable because it is allylic. So D is the most stable. B can be faster because once you form the carbocation, it can rearrange into an allylic carbocation. So it is going to be faster, and also the product is going to be, sorry, I shouldn't put retro arrow, this arrow, conjugated. So it is going to be stable. Here this is going to be just a pure secondary. So this is Charlie greater than alpha. So D greater than, B greater than, C greater than A. Option beta. Question number 9. For the Balmer series. So Balmer series, what do we know? So for Lyman series, N1 equals 1. For Balmer series, N1 equals 2. N2 is greater than 2. Now the correct statements are, they are asking you correct ones. So wavelength decreases, the lines in the series converge. Okay, converge means go up or go down. Diverge means it goes away. Divergence. Convergence means comes in. Wavelength decreases. So that is true. The integer N1 equals 2. The lines of the longest wavelength corresponds to N2 equals 3. That is also true. N2 is greater than 2 means the first number you can have is 3 till infinity. Now you want longest wavelength means shortest or the lowest energy. Lowest energy is for N2 equals 3. That is also correct. So 1 is correct, 2 is correct, 3 is correct. Option is Charlie. Ionization energy of hydrogen cannot be calculated using these lines. Question number 10. The graph of vapor pressure versus temperature is given. Vapor pressure on the y-axis, temperature on the x-axis for 3 different liquids, X, Y and Z. Now what can we say? Now instead of looking at the options, just look into this. For any given temperature, let's say for example at this temperature, let's take the up to this. Up to this, the vapor pressure is extremely low, 0 pretty much. They have not given you, yeah, they have given you a scale. Up to this temperature, Y and Z are 0, whereas X has some vapor pressure. So meaning vapor pressure of X is greater than Y, Y is greater than Z. So in terms of vapor pressure, we have X greater than Y greater than Z. If we know this, what all can we do? We can also do boiling point. X lower than Y, which is lower than Z. Now, vapor pressure is high, meaning it easily goes into vapor. If something easily goes into vapor, it doesn't like the environment, it isn't much, meaning the intermolecular force is low. So the intermolecular force would be in the same order. Higher the intermolecular force, higher the boiling point. Now if you see, they are asking you, which of the following statement could be true? X has higher intermolecular interaction, wrong. X has lower intermolecular interaction compared to Y, which is correct. Statement B is correct. Z has lower intermolecular interaction, that is obviously wrong. So option is Charlie, statement B. Question 11. The stoichiometry and solubility product of the salt with the solubility curve given below is. This is a little trickier. We have not seen this pattern before. And what you can do is you can actually plot them at any given concentration. So I am going to take, when x equals 1, y is roughly equals 2. So if it is xy2, then I can say Ksp equals x times y squared, that is going to be 1 times 10 to the minus 3, because I want it in molar, what's given is millimolar, times 2 times 10 power minus 3 squared, that is going to be 4 times 10 power minus 9. So option is Charlie, not delta. If you look at delta, they are given you 1 times 10 power minus 9, that is not possible based on the given interference. Question number 12. The predominant intermolecular forces present in ethyl acetate, a liquid, is. So if you look at the formula of ethyl acetate, you can see that it's a ester molecule. There is no hydrogen bonding possible because there is no hydrogen attached to an electronegative element. So hydrogen bonding is not possible. Option alpha is wrong, beta is wrong, and delta is wrong. So obviously option is Charlie. Any molecule with another molecule have London dispersion forces. Ethyl acetate has dipole moment because there is a double bond also is present, C double bond O. So it is going to have dipole. Alright. Question 13. The number of bonds between sulfur and oxygen atom in S2O8 2 minus. So we have seen this in class. S2O8 2 minus. Now if you see this, we have seen the structure before. Right. Looking at the structure, we can see the number of bonds between sulfur and oxygen atom in this corresponding compound. So there is, for each sulfur there is 4 bonds, 2 types. The sulfur with the 3 oxygen on the terminal side is the same, because it's a resonating structure. The one with the peroxy oxygen is different. So there are 4 sulfur oxygen bond per sulfur. So there are total 8 of them. And the number of bonds between sulfur and sulfur atom in rhombic sulfur, that is also 8. So the option is 8 and 8. 14. Arrange the following compounds in the increasing order of COH bond length for methanol, phenol and ethoxyphenol. So I have our methanol here, phenol, ethoxyphenol. They are talking about the COH bond length, this bond length. Now this bond is longer if it's a single bond, shorter if it's a multiple bond. Now we know that phenol has partial double bond character, whereas this is single bond. So this is going to be longer. So methanol is longer. Here if you see, this doesn't happen that much because this also gives it into the ring. So ethoxyphenol has less of a double bond character than phenol. So the bond length is going to be methanol greater than ethoxyphenol greater than phenol. We have option beta. Question number 15. Among the gases, the ones that cause greenhouse effects are. It's straightforward, everything but oxygen does it. So option is delta. 16. A flask contains a mixture of isohexane, 3-methylpentane. Isohexane and 3-methylpentane. One of the liquid boils at 63 and the other one boils at 60. Which is the best way to separate? When the boiling points are far away, you can do simple distillation. But when the boiling points are extremely close, what you want to do is you want to do fractional distillation. So I would do fractional distillation, but that doesn't narrow down my answer, Charlie or delta. I need to know which of them boils first, that will distill out first. One that is lower in boiling point will distill out first. When you look at it, this is a symmetrical molecule. So this would have much more interaction with another molecule compared to this one. So this is going to have a lower boiling point than this one. So what boils out first is your isohexane. Question 17. Now they have asked you to predict the products here. What is A and what is B? So A is being used up again. the major product in the following compounds is. So when you heat it with peroxide, you are going to form obviously a radical. So in the given molecule, what will be the best radical that will be formed? You are going to form the radical by removing the hydrogen atom. The best hydrogen that can be removed is from here. So you are going to form the radical this way. Now this is going to be reacted with, so it's an it's a nucleophile, but it needs only one electron to go here. Obviously this is the attaching center. Because it's a peroxide mechanism, this part gets attached to this carbon. If you attach it this way, you can look into the IUPAC numbering if you want to figure out the option. It should be beta. Now alpha is when this carbon attaches, so you got to be careful here. Otherwise it's a simple question. Just knowing your radical alone eliminates Charlie and delta. So now between alpha and beta, just looking at this, you can tell the answer. Question number 18. They asked you the most suitable reagent for the given conversion. So if you look at the functional groups, you have ketone, amide, acid and CN. So we have ketone, amide, acid and CN, and they have not changed the all of the functional groups. Only the acid is being converted to alcohol. So when you use lithium aluminum hydride will affect this and this. So you cannot use lithium aluminum hydride. It's a nucleophilic reduction reagent. Now the next one they give is sodium borohydride. Sodium borohydride can reduce a ketone. It cannot reduce your amide because the electrons of the nitrogen gives it, so it is not a strong nucleophile. Same, sodium borohydride cannot reduce your acid, so it cannot be used. Sodium borohydride cannot do this one as well. So H2PD definitely will affect this one, and we don't want to do that. B2H6 diborane is an electrophilic reagent. It will convert only your acid into alcohol, but it won't touch the other three. So option is beta. Question number 19. When gypsum is heated to 393 Kelvin, what happens? So gypsum is calcium sulfate dihydrate. So when you heat it to 393, you are going to lose 1.5 molecules of water to get plaster of Paris. Option delta. 20. The complex that can show FAC and MER isomerism. FAC and MER isomerism is shown by complex of the type MA3B3. Now, what are the types of the compounds given here? First one is MA2B2. It cannot show FAC and MER. Second one is MA4B2. So MA4B2 can show cis and trans. So the only one that can show you FAC and MER is Charlie. Section 2. From this year on, they have changed it. They have introduced a new section 2. Until last year it used to be 30 questions. All of them used to be multiple choice, just like NEET exam. But here now they have changed it, and you have to get the correct answer as accurately as possible. People in NEET don't have to worry about it, but it's still the patterns, some of them are within your syllabus, but you don't have to be calculating this accurately. The magnitude of work done by a gas that undergoes reversible expansion along the path ABC shown in the figure. Now if you see, I have shown you the plot. One thing you want to know is the axis, the meeting axis is 2, 2, not 0, 0. So in x-axis, the change is from 2 to 8, 6. Y-axis, 2 to 8. That is going to be 6 again. The area is going to be, you can take it as a square and a triangle. So it's going to be 36 plus this is going to be 12, that is 48. So hence the option is 48 joules. So you have to write it as 48.00 joules. 22. The volume in milliliters of 0.125 molar AgNO3 required to quantitatively precipitate chloride ions in 0.3 grams of the given complexes. Now when you look at it, they have told you AgNO3, what is the volume? Concentration is 0.125 molar. They are telling you 0.3 grams of the complex. So moles of the complex is mass over molar mass, that would be 0.3 grams divided by 267.46 gram per mole. That tells you moles of chlorine is 3 times as much, because for the complex there is 3 chlorines outside ionizable valency. So this is going to be the moles of chlorine. Now I know the moles of chlorine, they are asking me the volume of AgNO3. So this would be the moles of AgNO3 required. Moles of chlorine, 1 mole of chlorine reacts with 1 Ag. So this is the moles of Ag plus required, or moles of AgNO3 is 3 times 0.3 divided by 267.46. Now I know my moles of AgNO3, they are asking you volume. Moles equals molarity times volume equals moles over molarity. So 3 times 0.3 divided by 267.46 times, now dividing that by my molarity, which is 0.125. Now you got to be careful here, they have asked you for the volume in milliliters, so times 1000. Without 1000 this would give you in liters, now they will ask you in milliliters. Now we have to do this. What we can do is we can take it as 125 times 10 to the power minus 3. This will go to the top, so it becomes 10 power 3. 125 goes in it 8 times. Right? So now 8 times, this is 0.9 times 10 power 3. So that is going to be 7,200 divided by 267.46. You have to get the answer. The best way is to do a long division method. 267.46. Now if you take it as roughly 250 times 3, 750. I don't have times 3, so I have to do times 2. Right about this character. So if you do times 2, I can eliminate this if you want. 267, round it off. So 7, 14, balance 1, 12, 13, balance 1, 534. Right? What is the next number I want to put there? What you can do is, a shortcut I use is, if 10 times of that is 2670 minus 18 roughly 70. Correct? I have about 800. It will go in it 3 times. So roughly I can put it as 7 times. If you are not able to do this math, meaning it is time for you to practice, I am just trying to figure out the difference. If it is 10 times, I would get this. I don't have 10 times, I decrease by this value, meaning 3 times has to go away, so 7 times. So if you do this, 7, 7, 7, 4, 42, 4, 40, roughly. So little bit less than 27, so 26.9. So the options that is given in NEET exam, in the IIT examiners, you can have a value of 26.80 till 27. So you can just put it as 26.95 IU. Now the other way of doing exactly this number is, now that I got 27, if you have the time, the best way to do that is, you can do 267.46, this number, times 27 and see how close you are, or 26.9 and see how close you are, and you can get the answer. What would be the electrode potential for the given half cell? pH equals 5. So they told you pH equals 5 and they given you the half cell and they given you E0 reduction, but the half cell given is oxidation. So as written, the reaction is oxidation, so the E0 for the reaction written is actually minus 1.23. So we have E cell equals E0 cell minus 0.0591 by N log of product over reactants. In our case, we have minus 1.23 minus 0.0591, oxygen means 4 electron, log of H plus to the power 4 and oxygen to the power 1. This is going to be minus 1.23 minus 0.0591 by 4 log of H plus is, pH is 5, H plus is 10 to the power minus 5, 10 power minus 5 to the power 4, this is given as 1. So this is going to be minus 1.23 minus 0.0591 by 4 times 10 to the power minus 20. Log of 10 to the power minus 20 is minus 20. So this is 5. And this symbol goes away. It becomes plus. Now you can take it roughly as 0.06 if you want. Now if you look into it, you should get the answer roughly minus 0.93 volts. But the answer that is given in it is 1.52 to 1.53. That's because they pretty sure they overlooked the fact that what's given as E0 reduction. If it is just given as E0 for that, I would have used 1.23 here, positive 1.23. If this is positive 1.23 and you add this number, you will get the value they have given. Question 24. So now here they are talking about ferrous sulfate heptahydrate, FeSO4.7H2O. It's used to fortify foods with iron. The amount of salt required to achieve 10 ppm of iron in 100 kilogram of wheat. So now they are telling you 10 ppm in 100 kilograms. 1 ppm is basically 1 gram of iron in a million grams of wheat or the source. Now I want 10 ppm is 10 grams iron in a million grams of wheat or 10 grams iron in 10 to the power 3, 1000 kilograms of wheat. They are asking you only 100 kilograms. So 10 grams in 1000 kilograms. So how many grams in 100 kilograms? 1 gram iron in 100 kgs of wheat. Now they are talking about how much of this compound you will take that will contain 1 gram of iron. Now if you calculate the molar mass, you should get 277.85. So what it tells you is (55.85 grams iron is present in 277.85 grams FeSO4 7H2O. Now I want only 1 gram. So in how many grams is it present? So that is going to be equal to 1 times 277.85 divided by 55.8. Again one more long division method. So you should get a value somewhere around 5. I get around 4.97. You can do your own long division method. The last problem. The number of chiral centers in penicillin. So here you have a structure of penicillin. I have also put an asterisk above the carbons that are chiral, and you can see that there are 3 of them. Now we have solved the problems here. What I would say is this year paper is reasonably, or this particular paper is reasonably more difficult compared to a regular JEE mains paper, but still it is doable. Okay. Thank you guys.